Good afternoon or good evening or whichever one it is. I'm Reverend Mark Hughes and you caught me again. This is Juxtaposition, Vermont Racial Justice Alliance's television program. We are here. I am here to walk through this next hour with you. Issues affecting black folks and black folks affecting change here on Juxtaposition. So here we go. We're here in studio right now. I've got a couple things to talk to you about today. Some of them are better than others, but we've got an interesting lead in for you tonight. Just watching, what's developing nationally. We know that the federal government has essentially upended civil rights, all civil rights protections across every federal agency. In addition to that, we see that there's been a weaponization of the Department of Justice coming after DEI, a conflation of civil rights with DEI. And essentially, just looking across the United States, what we see is that there's been an attack on law firms, colleges and universities, state governments threatening to withhold funds and so forth, which really changes the mood and the attitude about what folks have to say about any of this. And of course, meanwhile, while all of that's going on, we have ICE. So ICE is doing all of the things that ICE does at the same time. So there's so many things going on at the same time. And one of the things that we know is that, ICE has been unleashed and there's been a whole lot of attention that's been drawn towards that, and they're doing a lot of damage, and we are rightfully keeping an eye on those fellas, but there's more to the story. What we know is that a lot of conversation has happened about what to do about it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. I've got a special guest I'm going to introduce to you in a minute, but our topic tonight, slave catchers. Slave catchers. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. So I've got a multi-published, multi-recorded spoken word artist, a slavery abolitionist and a social justice activist with me tonight. He's been mentored by the poetic activist legends like Abiodun Oyoli. I just crucified that name.
Abiodun Oyewole.
Thank you. And of the last poets and the leader of the Black Arts Movement, Amari Baraka. Max, he comes from a proud lineage of artistic social change makers. I'm excited to have Max. He's a good buddy of mine too. In addition to being named the National Poet of the Year twice, he's a recipient of the Missouri Cure Mark Taylor Activism Award and also the Will Bell Humanitarian Award and the In the Spirit of Malcolm X Award from the MX Media for his abolitionist activism. I've got so much more. I could continue to, Max, I could read this thing for the next 15 minutes, but I'm not going to do that. I want to welcome you, my brother, to the program Juxtaposition. Welcome, Max.
It's good to be back.
Indeed, it's good to have you back. What is going on, Max? What is going on? We've got so many things happening across the United States. We know that and I do want to shout out some condolences for those folks who lost lives and families there in Minnesota. And I want to be insensitive to that as we're talking about ICE because that's on the forefront. Obviously, there's a lot of other families that have been impacted, a lot of families that have been separated, and a lot of stress and unnecessary trauma that has been caused across the nation. ICE is something to talk about, but I want to talk about the broader discussion because really ICE is just another form of policing. We know that the federal government has various police agencies. ICE is one of them. The DEA is another, the FBI is another, the ATF is another one. And the U.S. Marshals is yet another one. There are many federal agencies, and all of them are busy. And the one that we seem to have our eye on mostly today is ICE. And I just want to distill this down to talking about who we are and where we are as America and also talk a little bit about the history of not just ICE, but because that only takes us back to 9/11, but the history of policing in America and what that has meant to Black and other marginalized communities. Max, what's going on?
I mean, where do we begin with the recreation of a transatlantic slave trade in 2025 and 2026, for instance, where we are literally sending people to foreign nations and paying them to house immigrants who, in many cases, weren't born in these nations. And these are prisons that are hellholes with human rights violations that are well known, where people have disappeared and the Constitution no longer applies to them. So in effect, in some cases, you're talking about death sentences for not having your paperwork in order or just being framed for it. In countries, some of these countries, we're paying $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a head to these prisons outside the U.S. borders to house them. And in those countries, that type of money is the equivalent of $250,000 or more because they're so poor. So they're scrambling now to take these bodies in from the United States in order to get this money. And when you're sending people from one country to another, and someone's getting paid to house them in such a way, there's a name for that. You know, prison is an economic development program. And ICE now has effectively moved towards doubling what was already the largest prison population on earth. And now we're moving towards doubling it. We already have doubled the money. ICE now spends more money than the U.S. prison system combined. So they've effectively doubled the resources being generated by this. And these for-profit private prisons and some of these burgeoning industrial prisons overseas are seeing an economic boom over slavery.
Slavery. That's the word
Slavery.
I was waiting for you to say. Slavery.
Yes.
That's what we abolished here in Vermont a few years ago, right? Thanks for the assist on that.
Well, you abolished it in law, and we're still working on it in practice.
In practice, still working on it. Take a look at this slide here, folks. This is we're going to talk a little bit about the origins of this whole idea of policing, the tough on crime laws, unprecedented number of nonviolent offenders behind bars, and our neighborhoods, they don't feel any more secure. So this system that we're dealing with here, it's got deep roots in slavery. So I know that there's this cute analogy that folks are using to say, oh, well, these guys are like the Gestapo. No, they ain't. They're not like the Gestapo. They're not. What they are like is they're like the slave patrols of the United States of America. The slave patrols as well.
Slave catchers.
And the slave catchers, yes. And what that's the origins of who we are as a nation. As a nation here in the United States, we've for centuries had these practices. Here's some origins. Is the modern day policing can be traced back to the slave patrol. The earliest formal slave patrol was created in the Carolinas. Max, you down there in the Carolinas. Let's see, that was back in the 1700s to establish a system of terror and to squash the slave uprisings with captivity, to pursue, apprehend, and return runaway slaves to their owners. So this is, right on the bottom of this slide is the oath, the North Carolina Slave Patrol oath. So yeah, I mean there was definitely there are some origins of what it is that we're seeing here. What is little known, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day, is that those tactics that were incorporated over in the Third Reich, you know, under that regime of terror, they were adopted from the practices that would be Jim Crow, and as well as the whole institution of slavery here in the United States. So that's where, see, folks are they're just not going back far enough. Maybe they are, you know, tactics that are akin to the Gestapo. But the question is where did the Gestapo get their tactics? So here's this. If you want to take a look at this, this is something else I dug up. I thought you'd appreciate this, Max. I said to myself, because some people say, oh well, that happened, later after the nation was formed, and I said I thought I saw not just the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, but also the Fugitive Slave article in the Constitution itself. So I wanted to just share that is the Constitution was written with a way in which you could go and collect folks up. So there's that language there as well for folks who are watching. There's also, just continuing on slave patrols. They continued until the 13th Amendment, and then following the Civil War during Reconstruction, these slave patrols, they were replaced by militia-style groups who were empowered to control and deny access to equal rights to freed slaves. So there is a contiguous thread throughout the history of the United States, so where all the way up into the time where policing was actually created, where we've got this connection. So it shouldn't surprise folks. Folks just like, oh, I'm so shocked and appalled that we could be doing this in the United States. I can't believe we have, modern day concentration camps in the United States. Well, we had old school concentration camps. So, when we put folks from Japan in concentration camps here. So none of this stuff is new, I guess is what I'm getting at. Max, I know you guys down there in Sumter, y'all aren't seeing any of this because y'all are above the fray and y'all never see any of the federal presence down in your area, right?
I actually just leased an office in Columbia, just at the Capitol, not too far from where I'm at right now.
Not too far from where you are?
Mm-hmm.
What else are you seeing down there, and more on thoughts on just this legacy that we're experiencing right now before we turn the corner on the conversation?
What I wouldn't mind doing actually is sharing the words of Langston Hughes in 1943, what he had to say, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, yeah.
Langston said, "Looky here, America, what you've done. Let things drift until the riots come. Now your policemen let the mobs run free. I reckon you don't care nothing about me. You tell me that Hitler is a mighty bad man. I guess he took lessons from the Ku Klux Klan. You tell me Mussolini's got an evil heart. Well, it must have been in Beaumont that he had his start, because everything that Hitler and Mussolini do, Negroes get the same treatment from you. You Jim Crowed me before Hitler rose to power, and you're still Jim Crowing me right now, this very hour. Yet you say we're fighting for democracy. Then why don't democracy include me? I ask you this question because I want to know how long I got to fight both Hitler and Jim Crow." That was Langston Hughes in 1943.
1943. We're going to. I think Tribal is in the waiting room. Can we bring her on?
She said she wanted to listen.
She just wanted to listen?
But I mean, if you want to bring her on, and she says, yeah, let's do it.
Well, she certainly is welcome. We wanted to. This is a tandem couple because this is like a couple that we've got out there in Sumter. I like to have them together. These are friends of the family.
Tribal and I have been together almost 40 years now in art and activism and in life. Collectively in spoken word, we're known as Maximum Impact Poetry.
Maximum Impact.
Tribal is every bit the poet that I am.
Yeah, and you know what? Some people say more.
It's very likely. She's my favorite poet, that's for sure.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing up here, just to kind of open this thing up a little bit, because we know, okay, we got it. Police you know, there's a legacy that goes back to slavery, and we understand that policing, it was born in, you know, when we go up to 1850 after the Fugitive Slave Act, that they began to construct departments, police departments at the turn of the century after that. We know that. So again, it's not rocket science that policing would be, let's just say, at the least problematic in Black and other marginalized communities. You know, it's funny, I was just talking to the mayor the other day, trying to explain to her why it is that today, more than ever, that we should be concerned about policing in our neighborhoods, particularly in Black and brown and other marginalized communities. I thought it was, you know, a little bit interesting that I needed to explain that is what was going on. How quickly people, you know, become, they just develop amnesia about all the things that we've been talking about the whole time.
Well,
I don't even think folks can spell George Floyd anymore. Say again?
I think they're romanticizing the issue. It's got to be some foreign ideals and that we're following. So, you know, this is what Europe did, not what America did. But the truth is nowhere near close to that. As you mentioned earlier, Hitler got his calling cards and cues from Jim Crow America. They studied what we were doing here to African Americans in the United States, and they copied it in Germany. So what they knew there, they got from here. And it's still going on till this day.
That's right.
You know, I get a little frustrated, man, because as I said, the prison population right now, at least the resources have doubled, and they expect to double the population, which is nearly 2.5 million. So we're expected to go up to 5 million. But if you take them at their word, they're looking to get 20 million Hispanics out of the country. Nonetheless, this is just the expansion of slavery and slave catchers. As you know very well, Vermont began, they were the grandfather of the slavery exception clause that we have in the 13th Amendment, as well as what we had in 25 states' constitutions until we came along. And what I mean by exception clause is in the Constitution itself, Vermont inserted language that allowed for slavery as a punishment for crime, in addition to 2 other ways that you could become a slave. So it didn't abolish it, as Vermont said they had done for so many years. They were the first to legalize it. And that was copied all across the country, leading up to the largest prison population in the world that we have today, leading up to convict leasing, leading up to chain gangs. And now we see it reflected within the, with ICE and Border Patrol, where it's really not about anybody breaking laws. It's about generating revenues at the cost of human bodies, which are being turned into products to be bought and sold on the open international market. We're talking about a real crime against humanity right now in real time. And it didn't start with immigration, and it's not going to end with immigration. So even if you were to abolish ICE, which is what the goal of many people is to achieve, would that make you satisfied, knowing that you have eliminated slavery for one group and left it for another? So we can go right back to where Black people primarily were being chased and hunted and caught and commodified and brutalized by police. Would that satisfy you if we went back to that situation?
Yeah, in our last 10 minutes, I'd say, I mean, you're right over the target, and that's what we came to talk about, slave catchers, because what we're looking at right now is that the same law enforcement agencies that were collecting Black and brown bodies, because we know that across the United States, this is not in Vermont, because in Vermont our prison population is about a multiplier is about ×9. We got about a 1.3 or 1.4% Black population in the state. It's about 11% in the prisons, and that's pretty high given the numbers across the state. Usually, the United States rather, it's usually like a ×3, which means like we've got about a 13% Black population, and our prisons are right at about 35 or 38% across the United States. What we know,
39.
Yeah, and what we know is that this is, that there are hugely, and you take that and you add in Hispanic, you add in the other brown folks and others, we're upwards of over 70, nearly 75% of those prisons are black and brown folks. That's the reality of what we're dealing with, and that none of that has changed. And here in Vermont, we continue to wrestle with the disproportionate stopping of black and brown folks with our traffic stops. We just had another report that just came out last year. So all of this stuff is happening all at the same time in real time. So I'm not saying that we don't focus on the immigration piece because it's important, because they're messing with our black and brown brothers and sisters. But we can't lose focus of the, foundationally what we've been dealing with the entire time, because it is being exacerbated right now. Take a look at these slides real quick. I just want to pop you through a couple of them, because what we did is we did an analysis of many of the executive orders that came out, the overwhelming majority of them. We came up with some pretty disturbing analysis as far as what is actually going on, because this is directed what's going on. I'm going to talk a little bit about just some analysis on an executive order called 14159. And what it essentially does is that it establishes the Homeland Security Task Force, the Homeland Security Task Forces. And what that means is here in Section 6 is that that's including representation from any other federal agencies with law enforcement officers or agencies with the ability to provide logistics, intelligence, and operational support to the Homeland Security Task Forces. That is the Homeland Security Task Forces. So why am I saying this? Is because they've deployed these folks all across the United States, and this is another apparatus that's within each state that we need to be concerned about, because it's not just ICE. It's not just ICE. There is the ATF, there's the FBI, there's the DEA, there is also the U.S. Marshal's Office, all in these offices. So it is correct that ICE is the tip of the spear, and they're out there wreaking a lot of havoc. But to say that the challenges ICE alone would be incorrect, because they're integrated, they're fully integrated. I want to talk a little bit also about, and what I'm doing is I'm expanding upon what we already know and just providing additional information to give us a broader perspective of what it is that we're looking at. 14288, this is another executive order. You can take a look at this. Legal defense of police officers, limiting federal oversight of police officers, empowering local law enforcement officers, military transfer equipment to police, and enforcing against local officials who try to, quote unquote, obstruct justice. Why is this important? Is because this here is probably one of the most harmful executive orders to black and marginalized communities that could have ever existed. And there's very little chatter about it, and there's very little talk about the fact that the law enforcement officers that were already posing a significant risk and danger in black and brown and other marginalized communities have been emboldened by these executive orders. And what that's doing is that's creating more havoc in our communities as well. So the point is just that we got to pay attention to the broader picture. What's going on right now is that the entire civil rights apparatus of the federal government has been upended. Take a look at this slide. The entire civil apparatus, the civil rights apparatus from the first thing that the President of the United States did is he rescinded the LBJ's employment discrimination equal opportunity orders. That's the of 1965. What on earth has that got to do with DEI? An executive order on discrimination, that you can't discriminate if you have folks contracting with the largest business on the planet. The Department of Labor, EPA, Education, Housing, Urban Development, the Veterans Administration, Social Security, and yes, the crown jewel, Department of Justice. This is what's going on while all of this policing and ICE and all of this other stuff is going on. These are very, very targeted, very explicitly targeted executive orders and executive actions that are designed to create disruption in black and brown communities, and at the end of the day, ultimately create more problems for more white people at the end of the day. So this is the upending of civil rights as we know it. So I think it's a good idea for us to make sure we're holding checks and balances on what we know to be ICE. And yeah, but we should also have a broader analysis on what the larger issues are and hold elected and appointed officials locally here in the state accountable for using their powers to be able to create a backstop or a firewall against the federal government's lack of enforcement on federal civil rights, as well as calling on the governor as well as the legislature and other executive officials to use the fullest extent of their powers and authority to do so. And what that means is by use of executive orders, by use of policy, and yes, even the Attorney General's office with litigation. So that's kind of where we are right now. And this is where another place that those of us who are screaming at the slave catchers, some of us can direct our attention, and that is to local elected and appointed officials. Because guess what, Max? If we don't do that, what's happening is our elected, local, and also our appointed officials, they're not being held accountable. They are essentially hiding behind obscurity and objectivity, and none of them are really raising their head up enough to make the noise that needs to be made to call attention to what's really happening. Max, I want to thank you for coming. It's always good. We never have enough time. Your predictions, where are we going from here?
I think things will get worse before they get better, much worse. It may even slide into civil war. But there's going to come a point where there's going to be armed conflict for sure on the streets of America. And that's just domestically. Internationally, we're also seconds before midnight on the nuclear clock, because the same type of policies that are being directed at citizens of the United States are being directed outwards at other nations. Threats that we're making to other nations and challenges and invasions. I mean, we literally just went into a foreign country and kidnapped their president. So it's dangerous times ahead of us. I like to be hopeful, but I don't want to be a fear monger either. And, just try to live your life the best you can right now. Do what you can to make a difference in your community and in your country. And educate yourself on not only the issues going on around you, but just in case you need some survival information as well, in case of emergency. We just recently heard from the feds that it's a potential for a nuclear attack on American soil, and they marked 15 states 15 cities that would be targets of that. So that's where we're at in the United States right now, where everybody's walking on eggshells. So
Appreciate you,
try
Max.
to live your life the best you can. Thank you for allowing me to be here again. I appreciate you, Mark.
Max, it's such a pleasure to have you. Appreciate you very much. Thank you for coming. Last slide, folks, is the Fusion movement. This is Raise Up Justice. Raise Up Justice. A week from tomorrow, that's the 19th. A week from tomorrow is the 19th. We're at the Richard Kim Center. This is a fusion movement: civil rights, equal protection, human rights, nonviolence, and beloved community. Multiracial, intergenerational, interfaith, multi-able, and politically independent. The Raise Up Justice campaign, civil rights. This has been Juxtaposition. Thank you so much for coming. We are always here every single second Wednesday of the month. Issues affecting black folks affecting change. Good night.
My people with me, together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on, I can feel it in my bones.
Recordings